In a world that never stops talking, silence is rebellion. And in a society that tells men to always be strong, always be social, always be on, the greatest act of strength might be choosing to be alone. But not lonely, alone, with purpose. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, once said, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." And yet, most men today run from that retreat. Why? Because solitude forces you to confront the one person you can't lie to yourself. But here's the truth: solitude isn't weakness. It's where real men are forged. If you've ever felt overwhelmed by the noise of the world, and you're tired of chasing validation, this video is for you. Because solitude, when embraced the Stoic way, can transform you into a man who doesn't chase approval, but attracts respect. Number 1. Break free from societal pressure. From the moment we take our first breath, the world begins to shape us. Expectations are handed down like invisible chains. Be strong, be successful, be social, be seen. As boys grow into men, we're rarely taught to ask who we are. We're simply taught to perform. Society gives us a mask and says, "Wear this and you'll be accepted." So we do. We chase praise, validation, admiration, often without knowing why. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, we begin to lose sight of ourselves. We begin to fear being alone. Not because solitude is inherently painful, but because we've attached our value to being noticed. To be seen is to matter. To be alone is to disappear. And in that fear, we trade our freedom for approval. We scroll endlessly. We post. We perform. We seek reactions from people we wouldn't even trust with our secrets, all in a desperate attempt to feel significant. But the Stoics saw through this illusion. They understood that the crowd, with all its noise, often leads us away from our own nature. Marcus Aurelius, a man who held absolute power, wrote to himself, not to impress others, but to remain grounded. He reminded himself, the approval of the crowd is worthless. Imagine that. The most powerful man in the world deliberately reminding himself not to care what others think, because even he knew that external validation is fleeting, and the only thing that endures is character. Society tells you that solitude is a sign of failure, that being alone means you're unwanted or forgotten. But this is a lie. Solitude is not the absence of connection. It's the presence of clarity. When you disconnect from the noise, you reconnect with yourself. You begin to notice thoughts that were buried under distraction. You start to hear your own voice again, not the voice shaped by algorithms or expectations, but the voice of your own conscience. There is something terrifying and liberating about sitting in silence with yourself, because it strips away all the masks. There is no applause, no filters, no crowd, just you and the raw truth of who you are. But in that space, you find something society cannot offer: self-respect. You begin to see that your worth is not based on how many people follow you, how loud you speak, or how much attention you receive. Your worth is intrinsic. It's found in your choices, your values, and your ability to live aligned with your own principles, even when no one's watching. Epictetus once said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." And how can you become the master of yourself if you've never even met yourself? If you've spent your entire life trying to become what others expect you to be? Solitude is not isolation. It is not retreat. It is not weakness. It is resistance. It is the quiet revolution of a man who dares to say, "I will no longer live according to someone else's script." It is the birthplace of strength, the forge where true masculinity is refined, not the shallow masculinity of dominance or control, but the deeper strength of clarity, discipline, and presence. When you stop chasing the spotlight, you become the fire. You no longer need to be seen because you see yourself. And when that happens, people feel it. They notice. Because the man who is comfortable in solitude does not seek approval. He attracts respect. So let society scream. Let it keep pushing. Men to prove themselves through noise. But you choose the quiet. You choose to face yourself. Because in that stillness, you'll find what the crowd can never give you: peace, purpose, and the strength to live by your own truth. Number 2, embrace solitude for self-discovery. Solitude is not merely the absence of people, it is the presence of yourself. In a world obsessed with distractions, finding moments to be alone can feel unsettling, almost unnatural. But it is in this solitude that the most profound discoveries about ourselves are made. When we are constantly surrounded by others, by noise, by the constant demand to be seen and heard, it becomes almost impossible to understand who we really are. It's only when we step away from the crowd that we can begin to hear our own thoughts clearly, without the influence of external pressures. For the Stoics, solitude was an essential tool for self-mastery. Seneca, one of the great Stoic philosophers, wrote about how important it is to retreat into oneself in order to examine one's life. We suffer more often in imagination than in reality, he said. And when we never give ourselves the time to be alone, to sit with our thoughts, we allow our fears, doubts, and insecurities to run wild. But when we spend time in solitude, we force ourselves to confront these fears head-on. We don't hide from them. We face them, learn from them, and grow stronger as a result. The beauty of solitude is that it allows you to examine your thoughts and emotions without external influence. It gives you the space to question the beliefs you've inherited, the values you've been taught, and the choices you've made. Without distractions, you can ask yourself the most difficult and important questions. What do I truly want out of life? What kind of man do I want to become? What am I running from? These questions might be uncomfortable, but they are also essential. They are the questions that lead to growth, to understanding, and ultimately, to a life of intention. In the quiet moments of solitude, you are forced to confront your own flaws and weaknesses. This is where real self-discovery begins. You begin to see where you've been avoiding responsibility, where you've been lying to yourself, where you've been making excuses, and while it may be painful, it is in this process of confronting the truth that you find the greatest opportunity for change. When you embrace solitude, you allow yourself to step outside the influence of others and reconnect with your authentic self. You can separate what truly matters to you from the noise of society's expectations. In this space, you find clarity. You can define your own purpose, your own goals, and your own values, not based on what others think you should want, but based on what is true to you. This is the power of solitude. It offers you the opportunity to become fully aware of who you are and who you want to be. It is through this process of self-reflection that you can begin to live a life that is authentic, intentional, and aligned with your deepest values. In a world that constantly demands your attention, solitude becomes the greatest act of rebellion. It is your way of saying, I do not need external validation to know my worth. The more time you spend in solitude, the clearer your sense of self becomes. You stop being swayed by the opinions of others. You stop seeking approval. Instead, You begin to trust your own instincts, to believe in your own ability to make decisions, and to live in a way that feels true to who you are. This is not a journey of self-absorption, but one of self-liberation. By embracing solitude, you free yourself from the constraints of society and begin to live with purpose, authenticity, and inner peace. Number 3, detox from approval seeking. The desire for external validation is one of the most insidious forces in the modern world. It's a silent yet powerful force that controls much of our behavior, dictating how we act, what we say, and even who we choose to become. In a society where social media amplifies every opinion, where likes, comments, and shares become a currency, it's easy to forget who we are and why we're doing what we're doing. The problem is, the more we seek approval from others, the less we understand ourselves. The Stoics knew this struggle well. Epictetus, in particular, was adamant about the dangers of relying on external validation. He taught that we should never allow our happiness or peace of mind to be dependent on the opinions of others. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters, he said. In other words, the opinions of others are not within your control, and if you allow them to define your self-worth, you are giving up your power. The constant need for approval can make us feel like we're living in a constant state of anxiety. We chase likes, we seek praise, we want to be noticed. But every moment we spend chasing someone else's approval is a moment we lose ourselves. And this cycle is endless. The more you seek external validation, the more you become trapped in a loop where nothing ever feels truly satisfying. You'll always be chasing the next approval, the next compliment, the next affirmation. This is why a detox from approval seeking is essential for personal growth. To truly reclaim your power, you must begin to detach from the need for validation from others. This doesn't mean you should abandon relationships or stop caring about others. It means that you should no longer derive your sense of self-worth from them. You should be able to stand on your own, to live your life in accordance with your own values, regardless of who is watching or what they think. The process of detoxing from approval seeking begins with awareness. You need to recognize when you're seeking validation and why. Is it because you feel insecure? Is it because you're afraid of being judged? Is it because you've been conditioned to believe that your worth is measured by others' opinions? Once you identify these patterns, you can begin to break free from them, and it all starts with learning to be content in your own company. Embracing solitude, you begin to rebuild your relationship with yourself. You stop relying on others to define your worth. You learn to trust yourself, to make decisions based on your own values and principles, not on the approval of the crowd. The Stoics taught that the path to true freedom comes from within, from mastering your own desires and from not being swayed by the opinions of others. When you stop seeking approval, you stop living for others and start living for yourself. This doesn't mean you become selfish or indifferent to others. It means you stop letting the opinions of others dictate your actions. You stop bending yourself into a shape that others expect, and you start to live in a way that is authentic to you. You begin to live a life of integrity, where your actions align with your true self, not with the fleeting desires of the crowd. The more you practice this detox, the more you'll notice how your sense of peace and contentment grows. You'll find that you no longer need constant reassurance because you've built a solid foundation within yourself. And when you no longer seek approval, something powerful happens. You begin to attract genuine respect. People start to notice the strength that comes from within, And they'll respect you not because you seek their approval, but because you are truly at peace with who you are. In the end, the goal is not to live without care for others, but to live without the need for external validation to define your worth. True freedom comes from within, and by learning to detach from approval seeking, you reclaim that freedom. Solitude gives you the space to rebuild your sense of self-worth, and in that space you find the strength to live authentically and with purpose. Number 4, gain clarity and define your values. In a world that's constantly pulling us in 1,000 different directions, it can be difficult to know what truly matters. We are bombarded with distractions, societal expectations, and the noise of external opinions. It's easy to get lost in this chaos, to follow trends, or to adopt the values of those around us without ever questioning if they align with our true selves. This lack of clarity leaves many men feeling adrift, unsure of their purpose, unsure of their path. But it's in solitude that we can finally find the clarity we need to define our values and make decisions that are aligned with our authentic. When you spend time alone, you gain the ability to hear your inner voice, the voice that's often drowned out by the noise of the world. The Stoics called this inner voice the logos, the rational principle that governs the universe. It's the part of you that is capable of wisdom, virtue, and self-mastery. But to hear the logos, you must first be still. You must quiet the noise, turn off the distractions, and allow yourself the space to think deeply about what truly matters to you. For Marcus Aurelius, who ruled the Roman Empire with an almost constant barrage of pressures and demands, the practice of journaling was a way to gain clarity and stay grounded. Every day he would reflect on his thoughts and actions, reminding himself of the values he wanted to live by: wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. This daily reflection was his way of bringing his life back to the core principles that mattered most to him. He would often ask himself, what is it that I truly value? And how can I live in accordance with these values? When you embrace solitude, you give yourself the same opportunity for reflection. You can step away from the demands of others and start to ask yourself the important questions. What do I truly care about? What kind of life do I want to create? What values are non-negotiable for me, regardless of what society expects? In solitude, you are free from the influence of others, and you can define your values based on what feels true to your soul, not based on external pressure. This process of gaining clarity is not a one-time event. It's an ongoing practice. Your values are not static. They evolve as you grow and learn more about yourself. But the key is to regularly check in with yourself, to spend time alone to reflect, to reassess, and to make sure you are still on the path that aligns with who you want to be. It's about setting a course for your life that is guided by your own principles and not by the fluctuating opinions of others. The power of solitude is that it allows you to define your life on your own terms. When you live according to your own values, you don't need to seek external validation. You don't need to live up to someone else's expectations, because you have already set your own standard for what is important. You begin to live a life of intention, where every action, every decision is rooted in the values that you have consciously chosen. Without clarity, we drift. Without a solid foundation of values, we are vulnerable to being swayed by every new idea, every passing trend. But with clarity comes power. When you know what you stand for, you make decisions with conviction. You pursue your goals with focus and determination. And most importantly, you live a life that is true to who you are, not to who others want you to be. This clarity also gives you the ability to say no to what doesn't serve you. When you know your values, you become less susceptible to the distractions and pressures that might otherwise pull you off course. You can walk away from relationships, opportunities, or situations that don't align with your core principles, knowing that doing so is an act of self-respect. It's in this space of clarity that you are able to create a life that feels truly yours, not one that is shaped by the expectations of the world. The Stoic practice of self-examination is all about gaining this clarity. By regularly stepping back and reflecting on your thoughts and actions, you align yourself with your values, ensuring that every decision you make is in line with who you want to be. Solitude becomes the vehicle for this transformation, giving you the space to think deeply, to clear the mental clutter, and to connect with the inner wisdom that already resides within you. Number 5. Become the unshakable man. When you embrace solitude, you begin the journey toward becoming an unshakable man. Not one who is immune to challenges, but one who is able to face them with composure and inner strength. The modern world is full of distractions, pressures, and constant noise, all of which can pull us off course. But the man who has mastered the art of solitude becomes impervious to these external forces. He doesn't need the approval of others to know his worth, and he doesn't crumble under the weight of society's expectations. Instead, he stands firm in his own truth, guided by his values and his inner compass. Stoicism teaches us that true strength comes from within. It's not about physical power or external achievements. It's about cultivating a resilient mind and a strong character that can withstand the inevitable storms of life. The Stoic ideal of the sage, the wise man who remains calm and composed, no matter the external circumstances, is a model for the unshakable man. This man does not react impulsively to life's challenges, but instead faces them with deliberate calm and clear judgment. Seneca said, "A man is not good because he's a man of action. He is good because he is a man who has mastered his own mind." This mastery is built in the quiet moments of solitude, when you confront your thoughts, your fears, and your desires without distraction. When you spend time alone, you begin to understand your weaknesses and vulnerabilities, and you develop the inner strength to confront them. You learn to control your emotions, to resist impulsive reactions, and to make decisions from a place of calm and clarity, rather than fear or frustration. The unshakable man is not someone who is unaffected by life's hardships. Rather, he is someone who has developed the resilience to face adversity with equanimity. In solitude, you begin to cultivate this resilience. You learn that while you can't control external events, you can control how you respond to them. This realization gives you a sense of freedom and power that few others experience. You stop reacting to life's challenges with anxiety, anger, or fear, and instead approach them with a calm, collected mind. This inner strength is what makes the unshakable man magnetic. It is not about arrogance or dominance, but about the quiet confidence that comes from knowing who you are and what you stand for. People are naturally drawn to this type of strength because it radiates peace and stability. When you stop chasing approval and begin to live in accordance with your values, you start attracting the respect and opportunities that you once sought desperately. You no longer have to chase after success or recognition because you have become the kind of man who naturally attracts it. Becoming unshakable doesn't mean avoiding discomfort. It means developing the ability to stay grounded in the face of. It means understanding that challenges are not obstacles, but opportunities for growth. Every setback, every failure, is a chance to build resilience and to refine your character. When you embrace solitude, you give yourself the space to reflect on these experiences, to learn from them, and to emerge stronger than before. The man who is unshakable is not only resilient in his own life, but he also becomes a source of strength for others. His presence is calming, his judgment sound, and his actions aligned with his deepest values. This is the power that comes from embracing solitude. Not isolation, but the strength to be yourself, fully and unapologetically. When you are comfortable in your own company, when you have faced your fears and developed self-mastery, you become the kind of man who can weather any storm with grace. Ultimately, solitude allows you to discover your true strength. It teaches you that you don't need to chase external validation, because you are enough as you are. It shows you that your worth is not defined by what others think, but by the character you build within yourself. As you become more grounded in who you are, you become unshakable, not just in the face of life's challenges, but in your purpose, your goals, and your ability to live authentically. By embracing solitude, you are not retreating from the world. You are preparing to face it with unshakable confidence. You are becoming the kind of man who stands firm in his truth, who is immune to the fleeting opinions of others, and who attracts the respect and opportunities that come with living a life of integrity. Number 6, reclaiming inner command. In a world that constantly pressures us to conform, to react, and to seek approval, reclaiming control over our own lives can feel like a radical act. The pressure is relentless. Social media, work, relationships, and even our inner voice telling us that we are never enough. Society teaches us that success is measured by external achievements, by how others perceive us, and by the approval we receive from the world around us. This can lead to a life driven by the need for validation, rather than one directed by purpose and self-mastery. Yet, it is in solitude that we find the space to regain control, to step away from the chaos, and to center ourselves. When you embrace solitude, you create a sanctuary, a quiet place where you can reclaim command over your thoughts, actions, and decisions. No longer are you merely reacting to life's demands, you become the one in charge. The act of stepping away from the noise and distractions of the world allows you to reconnect with your inner self, the part of you that has the capacity to make clear, intentional decisions. This is the beginning of inner command, the ability to observe your thoughts, understand your emotions, and act based on what truly matters to you, not on what others expect or what external forces push upon you. Solitude creates the perfect environment for self-discipline. It's a time to examine your thoughts, challenge your assumptions, and break free from the mental chains that external validation has placed upon you. This is the point where you start to understand that your thoughts are not you. They are simply passing phenomena. In solitude, you become the observer of your own mind. You can choose which thoughts to entertain and which ones to let go of. You begin to notice the patterns of thought that have been driving you, and you learn how to let go of the ones that are keeping you in a state of anxiety or dependency on others. By mastering your own mind, you reclaim your power. The Stoic philosophers understood that the true freedom comes not from external circumstances, but from internal control. Epictetus, in particular, emphasized that wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. The same principle applies here. Freedom does not lie in the approval of others or in external success, but in your ability to govern yourself. By embracing solitude, you learn to distance yourself from external validation and focus instead on what you can control: your actions, your reactions, and your character. This practice of self-discipline doesn't come from forcing yourself to live a certain way. It comes from developing the strength to live authentically and intentionally, even when the world around you is demanding otherwise. The path to inner command is not always easy. It requires patience, self-awareness, and a commitment to growth. But the more you practice solitude, the more you develop a deep understanding of who you are, what you value, and what you are willing to stand for. The result is a life lived with intention, where you are the one making the decisions, not influenced by the ever-changing opinions of others, but by your own principles. You become the master of your own mind and actions, and this inner mastery is the bedrock upon which all other successes are built. In solitude, you learn that the power to shape your life lies not in the external world, but within you. Number 7. Transformation through stillness. In a world where we are taught that success is about doing more, achieving more, and constantly pushing forward, it can be difficult to accept that real transformation doesn't always come from external pursuits. It often comes from stillness. Transformation through stillness is the practice of stepping away from the external world, turning inward, and allowing yourself to truly be. It is in these quiet moments that the deepest shifts in our personal development can occur. The world often demands that we are constantly active, constantly producing, and constantly striving for the next milestone. But the Stoics recognize that meaningful change happens not through constant doing, but through the act of stillness and reflection. Stillness is not about escaping the world. It's about engaging with yourself on a deeper level. It's in solitude that you can begin to address the uncomfortable truths about yourself, your fears, your insecurities, and your desires. When you take time away from the noise and distractions of everyday life, you are forced to confront the parts of yourself that you might otherwise avoid. This confrontation is uncomfortable, but it is necessary for growth. Transformation doesn't occur when you're constantly distracted or chasing after external goals. It happens when you allow yourself the space to reflect, to learn from your experiences, and to grow from the inside out. The Stoic philosopher Seneca wrote extensively about the importance of self-examination and reflection. He believed that we suffer more in imagination than in reality. It is only when we allow ourselves to sit in stillness, without the distraction of our busy lives, that we can begin to see the truth of our inner experiences. In this space of quiet reflection, we can gain clarity about who we are, what we want, and where we are headed. We begin to understand the deeper motivations behind our actions, and we learn to let go of what no longer serves us. It is through stillness that we make room for transformation, because only then can we let go of the things that hold us back and embrace a life that is more aligned with our true selves. Stillness allows for a deeper understanding of who we are. It provides the space for introspection, for self-examination, and for real growth. Without it, we may chase after external achievements without ever stopping to ask if those achievements align with our true values. But when we practice stillness, we create the time and space to confront our innermost fears, desires, and beliefs. This process of self-reflection leads to greater self-awareness and self-acceptance. It allows us to shed the false beliefs we may have held about ourselves and replace them with a more authentic understanding. Moreover, transformation through stillness is not just about understanding the self. It's about acting from that understanding. When you spend time in solitude, you gain the clarity to make decisions that are rooted in your authentic self. You stop being driven by the external expectations or the noise of the world. Instead, you begin to make choices that align with your core values and purpose. This kind of transformation isn't about achieving more. It's about becoming more of who you truly are. As you embrace stillness, you begin to realize that transformation is not something that happens in a single moment, but over time, through the ongoing practice of self-awareness and self-discipline. The stillness allows you to move away from external distractions and toward a deeper connection with yourself. It is here, in this quiet space, that true personal growth occurs, not through endless activity, but through the deliberate and conscious act of becoming still, reflective, and in tune with your innermost being. As we come to the end of this exploration into the power of solitude, remember that true strength doesn't come from seeking constant external validation or running away from discomfort. It comes from embracing moments of stillness, where we can reconnect with our true selves, confront our inner truths, and reclaim the authority over our own lives. The Stoics knew this well. Only in solitude can we cultivate the discipline and clarity needed to make choices aligned with our authentic self. Through embracing solitude, we not only detach ourselves from the noise and pressures of the world, but we also find the space to build an unshakable inner strength that leads to true freedom. The quiet moments we often avoid are the very moments that offer us the most profound growth and transformation. So next time you feel the urge to distract yourself or fill your life with noise, remember that in the stillness, you'll find the clarity you seek. Take the time to be alone, to reflect, to understand yourself better, and to realign your life with your deeper purpose. It is in this solitude that you will grow, become the best version of yourself, and reclaim control over your destiny. Thank you for watching. If you found value in this message, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content that helps you unlock your true potential. Stay true to yourself, embrace the power of solitude, and never stop growing.